Yeah. Yeah. Good morning. We're in Kuf Samach Beis, Siman Kuf Samach Beis, Sif Aleph, Kuf Samach Beis, Lo Lahal V'Sa B'Sa. So the whole concept of Sa B'Sa is Gzera D'Rabbanan. The Gzera is that, now Sa is a large measure of wheat. We're afraid that you'll borrow a large measure of wheat, and then by the time you pay it back, the cost of wheat has gone up. And so the value of what you're paying back is higher than the value of what you borrowed. And that would be a form of interest. Now, this is Gzera D'Rabbanan. And we're going to see some ways to get out of that. Because it's only Gzera D'Rabbanan, we're just trying to show that, here are different ways that if you're showing that, the value that it went up was in the Rishus of the Malva, so then there's no Gzera. And we're going to see that now. Aleph. Also, Lavo Sa B'Sa. You cannot lend, I'm going to borrow, and modern day equivalent would be a kilo bag of flour. I'm going to borrow a kilo bag of flour and pay back a kilo bag of flour because, it's just easier.
It's a large amount necessarily.
I think it does. We're going to see at the end of the SIF that may make a difference. So for borrowing a kilo bag of flour and paying it back, well, what happens if it was, 10 shekel a bag, and now it's 10 shekel and 30 agurot a bag? So we see that if it's only 30 agurot and people aren't makbid on that, then they're not makbid, and so it may not count. But what happens if you borrowed a tray of eggs and it was 34 shekel, and now it's 37 shekel. And it's like, well, for 3 shekel, I would have preferred the 3 shekel in my pocket, right? So then maybe that is interest. So we see different ways to get around it. So also b'sa afilu lo kotzev lo zman liparon. You're not allowed to, borrow an item whose value could go up in value and then pay back that same item. Even if you didn't set when you're going to pay it back. V'chen kol davar, it's not necessarily a saw of chitim, it's any item, any physical item whose value could go up. Chutz mimabea kesef, except hayotze b'hotza, except for cash that you can use to pay things. So, because like Rabbi Gilman was saying yesterday, there was a time in Eretz Yisrael when dollars were fairly commonly accepted within a store. You could pay something in dollars. So then that could be a currency that's accepted there. So then that counts as money. But if it's not commonly accepted in stores, so then that's not a currency. And then that's what he's saying. It has to be something that's used as cash. That you can use to pay things. The problem with Sabasah is that the item that you borrowed could become higher, the price of it could go up, it'll cost more money. And so now when you're paying back that item, you're paying back more, the dollar value more than what you borrowed, and that's ribis. Now the way around this is you can borrow an item if you say, I'm taking a bag, a kilo bag of flour, but we're going to say, well, what's it selling for at Yesh? It's selling for, 10 shekel. So I'm taking a bag of flour, but we're denominating this as a 10 shekel loan, right? So then then that's fine. I'll pay it back at 10 shekel or. Yeah. What was that? Well, we're going to see. We're going to read that now. Now, you can't do sabasa unless you set up that what you're actually borrowing is the value of the item that you're borrowing. The point is that if it goes up in value, if the 10 shekel bag later now sells for 10 shekel 50, you're only going to hand them 10 shekel. You're not going to hand them a bag. You can't, because then that now it's worth 10 shekel 50. If it goes up in value, I'll pay you 10 shekel. I won't give you back a bag. If you said at the time of the loan and you didn't say anything and you didn't turn it into a value loan. B'nis yaku, and now it does go up in value. So nosan lo hadam shal yeshavim b'shas halva. Then you have to give him the 10 shekel, the value that it was worth, at commonly at the time of the loan. Then huzlu nosan lo hasar shal there. But what happens if the value goes down? And we're very much not used to it, but there is such a thing as deflation, and things can actually go down in value. So then, if you didn't say anything, so then if it goes down in value, you not only you can you should give the bad, because if you give him 10, that should still work. You could probably still give the if you didn't set anything up, if you didn't turn it into a damim, and then the bag of flour goes down in value. So when you hand him back a bag, so you're giving him less than lesser of a value than what you borrowed, which is okay in terms of purpose. So then you can give the bag. A loan, even if you didn't use it, since you can use it, the fact that you're giving the exact same item, I don't think it makes a difference. Yesh mi shekasav de bizman hazeh matbea shel zav dinu ki kesef. There are those that say that these days a gold coin is still considered cash that you can use to pay for things, and that would depend on the particular times. Belovin zahuv bezahuv, and then you can borrow a gold coin and pay back a gold coin. And you don't say, well, what's the exchange rate between a gold coin and regular silver coins? You don't say that. Why? Because the gold coin itself is accepted. And there is a minhag to be makel. The elam chos biyadam, and you should not, be mocha. Don't yell at people who do that. Ki yesh lahem al mi sheyismocha, because it is a reliable opinion. Yesh mi she'omer demuta lalabos kikar lechem bekikar lechem. There are those that say that you can borrow a roll and pay back a roll. Now, why is that? Why did you suddenly switch to a roll? Because a roll is a smaller thing than a sachitim. And I think he's dafka focusing on that. That you can borrow a roll and pay back a roll because bekikar lechem kimat be'ah shel kesef. You can do that as if it is a silver coin, as if it is a shekel. Because since it's a small item, it's not that much. People don't care. So this roll will go from being 2 shekel 30 to 2 shekel 40. Okay, 10 agorot, nobody cares, right? So then it doesn't matter. And he says, so it seems like at least Ashkenazim can actually borrow small items, maybe a bag of flour, maybe a liter of milk, because the difference in price is going to be, even in inflationary times like we're living in now, the difference in price from 1 week to the next isn't going to be so great that people would be mocked on it. So we said one heter now already is that we saw 2 heterim in Aleph. One was that you can borrow an item if you set it up that I'm actually borrowing the cash value of the item. And if there was a difference in price, so then you're agreeing that you'll pay back cash or the item depending on which direction the price goes. That's okay. Another heter that we saw is if it's a small amount and people, the difference in price that it could change in is something that people are not makbid. That's another heter. So now we're going to go into another one, Beis, im yesh lo ma'at me'os sahamin. If you have at home, the borrower has at home a little bit of that thing that he's borrowing. So you're borrowing a kilo bag of flour. I don't know how much flour you would need in the house. You don't really need to have a kilo. You need a little bit of that. Afilu ein hamaftach biyado. Even if you don't actually have access to it, you can't, I lent the key to the pantry to my son-in-law and he's away, and it doesn't matter. It's in your interest, you have it. So, lo v'alav, then you can borrow sa b'sa. afilu a kamasan lefro asa b'sa. Then you can even do many son at a time, and even though it's b'sa. Now, how does this mechanism work? We said already that this is the whole chashash is a chashash d'Rabbanan. This whole isser is an isser d'Rabbanan. So we say like this: if you have a small amount of that thing, you can say that this small amount by the borrower is already dedicated, and it's already ki'ilu that it's sitting by the lender, and therefore, if there's a change in price, the change in price is happening in the lender's rishos. But it's only a small amount, keneged a large amount, so you'd have to do it many times. And how would that work? You can only do it once physically. It doesn't matter, right? As long as you have like a Pesach, as long as you have something that you can say that we took care of this problem, even if it doesn't actually work, it's fine. You can borrow many saw against one saw that the lova has b'rishusah, and then we took care of the problem of saw. Because we're tola that it's ki'ilu by the malva. It's not really by the malva. It's ki'ilu by the malva, and the change in price happened by the malva, and that's enough. Then ein lo klum me'os hamin. Now, what happens if the lova he doesn't have any, like literally none? Yidin lo hamalva ma'at me'os hamin. Then the malva can give him a matana. Here, have a little bit of this. Now you have some. Now we can borrow, many son keneged that. O yilaveo lo, v'achakach yilavelo kamasan. You could even lend him one saw. I guess that loan would have to be the monetary value, because otherwise, how did he do that first one? But once he lent him that one saw, which maybe we're saying that one is, set up as a monetary loan, as the value of that item. Now the lova has a saw in his possession, right? And now we can now say that, okay, that's dedicated to the malva. In other words, again, this is just so that you can say, we took care of the heter of yeshlo. As long as you can claim that, you're good. Das This is the Machaber, his own opinion. Haga Haya lelova ma'at me'osamin pikadon biad acher. What if the lova doesn't have a little bit of that flour by himself, but he does have it? It belongs to the lova, but it's sitting in somebody else's rishos. It's a deposit by somebody else. That still counts because it's still owned by the lova, and you can still say that is dedicated to the malva, and therefore any change in price happens in the malva's rishos. But if other people owe the lova of that min, that does not work. Lo mikri yeshlo. That does not count. You can't say that. The fact that other people owe the lova, therefore it's as if it's by the malva. That's too far of a stretch. You do not have the heter of yeshlo in that case. That's the base. Yosef v'chein mash b'dumar dezeyan eshach. That somebody else owing you doesn't count. V'chein im yeshlo b'mokam acher v'ein lamalva derech l'sham. What happens if the lova has in a different city? He has this in his rishos. The whole way that this works is because we say it's ki'ilu by the malva. But if the malva has no way of getting to it, or no reasonable way of getting to it, then that doesn't work. That does not count as yeshlo. Lova she'amar sheyeshlo ma'at mizeh hamin yuchal hamalva lahalvas lo. If the lova claims he has a little bit of that min, of that item, so then the malva doesn't need to prove it. He doesn't need to see that the lova has it. If the lova claims it, that's enough for the malva to set up a sub-basal loan. Then it's our choraya l'dvarvi. The lova does not have to prove it to the malva. That which we say that you can borrow sub-basal if the lova has me'os ha'amin, that's a stam situation. Aval im hamalva masne shem yisyakru chitim yishalim lo chitim. But if the malva actually sets up the loan that if it goes up in value, then I want the item itself back. Vim yuzlu yitin lo mos. And if it goes down in value, then I want you to give me, the value. right? So that is in such a way that the malva will never lose. Yitin lo amos, dami shavia kishar shel yitin lo amos, dmei shavia kishar shel aksha. But if the value of a saw of chitin goes down in value, then I want to get the original value. Asr, then this doesn't work. Even if we have yeshlo, even you can say yeshlo. The havikar l'schar v'rachok lehefsed, because this is a situation if the malva cannot lose in value. So the fact that yeshlo isn't going to be enough of the heter. I don't know. Gimel. Hayala also min shar b'shuk kavua. What if there is, now we're talking about a shar and a shuk kavua, like this makes like a commodities market, but I think that the Chacham are trying to set this down about trading. They're trying to give, for the dairas, and if there is an easily available commodities market that's liquid, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. But practically speaking, if you can easily go to a store and quickly buy the item that you owe to the malva, so then that's another heter. Both of them know that this thing is readily available in the market. That's another heter of setting up a sub. Why? Because again, the loba can get access to the item and then give it to the malva before it goes up in price. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but the point is that he can get it. So therefore, it's as if he did get it, and then it's as if it's already by the malva, and then it's as if the by the malva went up in value.
So the bag of flour today is not really a
seems that way. Now again, this one is even further removed, because the loba would have to go out and buy one, and then because he could buy one, therefore it's already by the malva. But again, we're saying all of these things as long as you can be toila. Okay, we have a heter, so then setting up the subbasa is loan is mutter. Agav, what does it mean a readily available known price market? That which he could borrow against it in the market. So all of this only works when the loba can pay back the original loan whenever he wants. Because then you could say, well, I could quickly go to the market, I could quickly go get it back, I can then return it to the malva. That only works if the loba has the right to pay it back anytime he wants, which is typically when neighbors are borrowing a bag of flour. That's typically how you set it up. Aval hisna shlo yikal piron ad shas hayoker. But if you set it up, well, wait a minute, I lent you something for 30 days, and in that 30 days, it's expected that interest is going to go up, and then everything is going to go up in value, and you can't pay me back before that. Then asr. Then setting up this kind of a loan becomes asr. That's it for today.